Hello, my name is Liz Palonzi and I am an environmentalist with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in marine and freshwater biology, and I have spent a lot of time out in the ocean. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the ocean food web and food chain and the plastic pollution which is affecting our oceans today. So, what is a food chain and food web? Well, a food chain is a top to bottom set of plants and animals. And it's top to bottom because those on top eat those below. A food web is a bunch of those food chains that are all interconnected into one system. And most marine animals are all connected by a food web. But before we dive into that, I'm going to need you to do something. I need you to get some supplies. You will need a pen or pencil, a pair of scissors, and a piece of tape or some glue. I'm going to need you to print off this pyramid, which came accompanied with this presentation. If you don't have a printer, that's okay. Just pull the pyramid up on your screen and recreate it on a blank piece of paper. It'll work just fine. So once you have that, what I need you to do is cut along these dotted lines. Be careful not to cut this tab off because we'll be using that in the end. And this pyramid represents the ocean food web. So now, pause your video, get your pyramid all set and cut out, and when you're done, come on back and we'll continue. Great, so now you have your pyramid cut out, and it should look something like this. You'll see some words printed on here, so let's go through them. At the bottom, you see what is called a primary producer. In biology, a primary producer means first in order. These organisms use sunlight energy to create chemical energy, and they use that energy to live. This process is called photosynthesis. So, since primary means one, you can put a number 1 down in the corner. Going up, you see the next line is a primary consumer. Primary consumers can't make their own energy to live, so they consume the primary producers to get their energy. Since that is also a primary, you can also put a number 1 down here in the corner, and I'll be going through these much more in depth throughout the presentation. Now, going up, you see secondary consumer and tertiary consumer. These are just fancy words for number 2 and number 3 in the order. So you can put a number 2 here and a number 3 here. And at the very top, we have the apex, and the apex is at the very top of the food chain and food web. So you can put a number 4 in this corner. You will be using this pyramid throughout the video because I'm going to be asking you, once I explain about all the different animals, to put the name of the animal in the correct spot, whether it be primary consumer, secondary consumer, and then draw a picture of an animal of your choice on the pyramid as well. And at the very end of the video, we'll be putting this together and you will have created your own ocean food web. So now, let's get started. Hi again, everyone. Okay, so now you have your pyramid. Let's jump in and start talking about the ocean food web and the plastic pollution that is affecting our oceans today. Keep that pyramid handy because we'll be using it throughout the video. So at the bottom of the food chain, the very beginning of the food chain, we have what are called the primary producers. And they are phytoplankton. They get their name from the Greek word phytos, meaning plant, and the Greek word planktos, meaning drifter or wanderer. So, phytoplankton really means plant wanderer. There are many different types of phytoplankton, but one example that I'm showing you here are called diatoms. And diatoms are single-celled algae that live in a house of glass. Their cell walls are comprised of a layer of silica, and they float everywhere in the ocean. They are the foundation for the ocean's food chain. They make up 95% of the primary producers on Earth. They are very important as they are the food for the next step in the food chain. Now, pause the video and pick a diatom you see here on the screen and draw it in the primary producer spot on your pyramid. Don't forget to place the name diatom in the name spot. Great. Now, the next step up in the food web are the primary consumers, and they're called zooplankton. They get their name from the Greek word zoon, meaning animal, and again, the Greek word planktos, meaning drifter or wanderer. So, zooplankton really means animal wanderer. The zooplankton are also called the small animals of the sea. And the zooplankton eat the primary producers, or the diatoms, to get the energy they need to live. One example of zooplankton are called Copepods. They get their name from the Greek word cope, meaning oar or paddle, and the Greek word pod, meaning foot. So, copepod really means, you guessed it, paddle foot. So the primary consumers eat the primary producers. And one type of primary consumer is the calanoids. The calanoids are microscopic crustaceans that are related to lobster, crabs, and shrimp. They have antennae and appendages that are used like paddles for movement. A single copepod may eat 11,000 to 373,000 diatoms in 24 hours. Copepods are very fast swimmers. Some can travel distances of 290 feet in 1 hour. That's really fast. That's the equivalent of a human swimming 50 miles an hour. But there are also some other types of primary consumers, and they are the shrimp and the krill. The shrimp and krill are also primary consumers, eating the diatoms. Now, pause the video and place the name of one of the animals you see and draw their picture in the pyramid. We have the secondary consumers, and they eat the primary consumers. Some examples of secondary consumers are sardines, the beautiful jellies, the lobsters, and the crabs. And these animals eat the smaller fish and crustaceans. Now, again, pause the video, draw one of these animals, and put their name in the correct spot on your pyramid. So, up the food chain we go. What's next? So now we have the tertiary consumers, and they eat the secondary consumers. And here are some examples. We have tuna, and they can get really large. They can weigh hundreds of pounds. And we also have the beautiful manta rays, and they eat the crab and shrimp and krill. So we have these consumers that are eating the consumers I just showed you. So these guys go around and they eat the jellies and lobsters and crabs and sardines. Also in the tertiary consumer spot, we have the seals. And the seals eat all different kinds of smaller fish that live in the ocean. So now, yep, you guessed it, pause the video, pick a tertiary consumer to put on your pyramid. So we've made it to the top of the ocean food web, and they are called the apex predators. These are the big guys. They eat everything. And I'm sure you can guess at least one of the animals I'm about to show you. Yep, I'm sure this animal came to mind. These are the great white sharks. They are very opportunistic feeders, and they eat just about everything in the ocean. Also in the top spot, we have the orcas and the dolphins. They are also opportunistic feeders, and they eat a large variety of smaller animals that you find in the ocean. And the orcas actually will eat seals and whales. So you can see why they made it to the top spot. So in general, the bigger animals eat the smaller animals. But that is not always the case. There are some exceptions out there. There are some very large animals that have decided they're going to skip a couple levels of the food web below them and only eat crustaceans. Can you think of an example? Well, I'm going to show you one. It is the blue whale. The blue whale is the largest animal known to ever exist.
They can grow up to 100 feet long. And they don't eat smaller animals like seals. They only eat krill, and they can eat up to 40 million krill every day. That's a lot of krill. So as you can see, in general, the bigger animals do eat the smaller animals. But there are some exceptions, as I've just explained. So some of these animals have decided to bend the rules just a little bit. So we have completed our food web. For the last time, choose an apex predator of your choice to put on your pyramid. Once you're done, just put that pyramid aside for a little bit because we'll be coming back to it towards the end of the video. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to talk to you about the perils or dangers of plastic that are affecting our oceans and the animals that live in the oceans. It's a very tough subject, but it's very important as well. So let's get started. In 2016, the US was the largest producer of plastics in the world. The US produced 92,654,148,922 pounds of plastic. That is a lot of plastic. To try to give you an idea of exactly how much plastic this is, I want to show you something. So here's a picture of Mount Everest. Mount Everest is 29,032 feet above sea level. Also on the screen is a Honda CR-V. How many Honda CR-V vehicles do you think it would take to equal the amount in weight that the US produced of plastics in the year 2016? Let's try to find out. So here are a bunch of Honda CR-Vs, and they're covering Mount Everest. And they're still covering Mount Everest. In fact, it would take 26,472,614 Honda CR-Vs to equal the amount in weight that the US produced of plastics in the year 2016. That is a lot of Honda CR-Vs. And, again, a lot of plastic. I'm going to show you some examples of what is going on in our oceans today. As some countries do not have a proper way to dispose of their trash and plastic, where do you think it goes? You guessed it, in the ocean. As you can see here, in 2014, the United Nations confirmed that at least 270,000 tons of plastic was in our oceans. 270,000 tons is 540 million pounds of plastic were put into our oceans. Due to the way the ocean currents flow, there are 5 particular spots in the oceans where all this plastic and trash accumulates. Here, circled in red, is what is known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. This is part of the garbage patch back in 2013 in Manila. Would you want to swim in that? I sure wouldn't. In fact, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is estimated to be 617,000 square miles.
One component of all this plastic going into the ocean are what is called microplastics. These microplastics are tiny pieces of plastic that are less than 0.2 inches large. These small pieces of plastic are created by breaking off the larger pieces of plastic which are in the ocean, and these pieces of plastic never go away. Not only is it dangerous for animals to eat this, but the plastic is a great surface for chemicals which have been dumped in the ocean can collect on. So not only are the animals eating the plastic, they're also eating the toxic chemicals which have stuck to the outside of this plastic. As the animals are eating this, the toxic chemicals are building up in the tissues in their bodies, and they have no way to get rid of all these toxins which are now building up in their bodies. These chemicals can cause cancer and a variety of other diseases for these poor ocean animals.
Now let's take a look at what these microplastics are doing to the animals as we go up the food chain. Here we have the zooplankton. These zooplankton have ingested microplastics. The fluorescent green, which you see here on the screen, is showing the microplastics that these animals have ingested. Now remember, these zooplankton are at the bottom of the food chain. So now we have the jellies, lobsters, and sardines who eat the zooplankton for food. They're not only eating their food, which has eaten plastic, but they're also eating plastic, which they mistake for food. So now all this plastic and toxic chemicals are accumulating in their bodies as well. And here we have sea turtles, and sea turtles eat smaller fish and jellies. So not only are they eating their food, which has ingested plastic, but the sea turtles are eating plastic, thinking that it's food. The picture on the right shows actual photos of plastic that has been taken out of sea turtles' bodies. And not only are they eating this plastic, they're also getting injured by the ocean trash. So again, they're eating plastic they think is food, and they're eating their food, which is also eaten plastic. The picture on the right shows two jars. One jar contains a jellyfish, the other jar contains a clear plastic bag. Now imagine you're a hungry sea turtle. Are you going to be able to tell the difference between the clear plastic bag and the jellyfish? It's really hard for us. Imagine how this turtle feels. They can't tell the difference, so they just eat the plastic bag, thinking that it's their food of a jellyfish. So now let's keep going up the food chain. Here are the seals. Seal eat the smaller fish. Fish eat the plastic. Fish also can eat the zooplankton, which ate the plastic. So now we have the seals who are eating plastic, which they mistake for food, plus their fish, which has ingested plastic. And these fish have ingested the zooplankton, which have also ingested plastic. Can you see where I'm going with this? Hold on, because it just keeps getting worse. So here we are with another apex predator, the polar bear. Polar bears eat seals, but polar bears are also eating plastic for food. So now we have the polar bear eating plastic, we have the polar bear eating the seals who ate plastic, and we have the seals who ate the fish who ate plastic, and the fish who ate the zooplankton which ate plastic. So now all this plastic and all these toxic chemicals are accumulating up the food chain.
The animals are eating plastics, which they are mistaking for food. So they think they are full. They don't know what they are eating has no nutritional value, and they are actually starving. They are starving because they are eating what they think is food and not getting the nourishment they need to maintain a healthy body. Not only are polar bears starving from eating plastic, but due to climate change, the ice floes are melting. Ice floes allow polar bears to range far out into the ocean to hunt for seals. Without the ice floes, the polar bears are forced to stay closer to land where they find plastic instead of seals. It is estimated that at this time, 25% of a polar bear's diet is plastic. Remember this slide? Now think if a blue whale eats 40 million krill every day, and those krill have eaten plastic. Imagine how sick that whale can become. Our oceans are sick, and they're making our ocean animals sick. So at this point, you may be asking yourself, well, what can I do? What can I do to help reduce the amount of plastic that is ending up in our oceans? Well, let's find out. This pyramid represents helpful ways that we can help reduce the amount of plastics and trash that are ending up in our oceans and environment today. At the bottom of the pyramid, and the most important thing we can do, is refuse. Refuse any products with a lot of extra packaging. Before buying something, you can ask yourself, do I really need this? Can I find a similar product from another company that doesn't use a lot of extra packaging? Going up the pyramid, reduce. Reduce the amount of plastics that we use. When we go to the market, you can bring reusable shopping bags instead of using plastic shopping bags.
You can use a reusable water bottle instead of all the plastic water bottles that are being used by people every day. Pack your lunch in a reusable container. Say no to disposable plastic straws. Now you can buy stainless steel straws that you can bring with you, and once they're used, you can bring home, wash them, and use them again. These are all very important ways that we can help reduce the amount of plastic and trash ending up in our oceans. Now, going up the pyramid, reuse. Before throwing something away, you can ask yourself, can I use that for something else? For example, a glass jar. Think about what different things it can be used for. It can be a vase. You can hold coins in it. You can put your crayons, pens, and pencils in there. There are so many other options that things can be used for instead of throwing them away. Also, going up, we'll be talking about rehoming. If you can't use something before you throw it away, maybe you can use it as an art project and give it to someone as a gift. Or maybe somebody else can use that item for something they need. That is called rehoming. Now, repair. If something breaks, instead of throwing it away and getting a new item, try to repair it. Just think of how good you will feel fixing something yourself. And if it can't be fixed, maybe you can find a way that you can use it for something else. If you just can't come up with a way to refuse, reduce, reuse, rehome, or repair an item, then recycle it. Bring the item to a recycling center where it can be resourced into making other items. Otherwise, these items will go into a landfill and sit there and rot. And who wants that to happen? It all starts with you and me and all of us to help reduce the plastics and waste being put into our environment and can end up in our oceans. You can see that recycling is really not the answer to start with. There are so many more important options and ways that we can help reduce the amount of plastics ending up in our oceans. This picture on the right demonstrates replacing certain items for the items that we probably use every day can help. For example, one bamboo toothbrush can replace 4 plastic toothbrushes in a year. One reusable water bottle can save 167 plastic water bottles that a normal person would use over the course of a year. And one reusable shopping bag equals 170 plastic bags that people use every year. Remember the stainless steel straw that I talked to you about? Well, using one metal straw for a year can save 540 plastic straws from ending up in our oceans. So I've discussed so far the ocean food chain and food web, the dangers of the plastics which are ending up in our oceans, and ways we can help prevent from all this plastic and trash from ending up in our oceans. But now I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I'm going to discuss with you, how do we assess the health of these animals that are living in the ocean? How do we know how they're doing, if they're surviving from year to year? So I'm going to tell you about ways of research that I did when I lived in Scotland and researched dolphins in an area called the Murray Firth. We would go out every day and photograph these dolphins and match certain parts of the dolphins to previous pictures which we already had in our database. We used a non-invasive tracking process called photo identification. Before I go into the process of photo identification, I'm going to go over a few parts of a dolphin's body, also known as the dolphin anatomy. Here we have the dorsal fin. This is the fin that sits on the dolphin's back. And here are what are called pectoral flippers. They're on the sides of the dolphin. And at the back of the dolphin is the fluke, or what everybody knows is the tail. So now that I showed you some different parts of the dolphin's body, the fins and flippers, do you think they work the same or do they work differently? If you chose differently, you're correct. The fins
the one that sits on the dolphin's back, are stationary and don't move. Their purpose is to keep the dolphins going straight in the water. If they didn't have this fin, when they swam, they would just spin around and around and around, and that's not very helpful. So the flippers, they're the ones that move. This is how the dolphins can steer through the water. So now I'm going to explain the process of photo identification of dolphins. This is a process of taking pictures of certain areas of the dolphin's body which we can compare to previously taken photos. Photo identification in the Moray Firth has been going on for many years, and we have a database of hundreds of pictures of dolphins that live in the Firth. The dolphins in the database have all been given names so we can tell them apart from each other when we want to identify them at future dates. So this is how we would begin. Myself and the research team would get in our boat and drive around the Moray Firth until we found a pod of dolphins. Yes, sometimes this would take hours. But when we found the dolphins, we would begin to photograph key body parts, which we could then take back to our lab and compare them to the photos in our database. One of the main body parts I would focus on is the dorsal fin. As you can see here, the fins come in all different shapes and sizes. There are tall ones, short ones, fat ones, and thin ones. Each dolphin's fin shape is unique to that animal, and the fin shape is the first thing I would look at when I started to compare new photos to the pictures of the known dolphins in the database. There are more features I would look at to see if the photos are a match to a particular dolphin. Now remember, not all these features are going to be present on every dolphin. These marks, which I am about to show, could happen when the dolphins are playing with each other or even fighting each other. Yes, dolphins do fight, and sometimes they can be very aggressive with each other. But one of the first marks I would look for if the dolphin had it are called notches, which you can see here on the screen. Here are some here, one here, and one there. Notches are deep cuts in the fin which never heal. So if the new photo and the photo of the known dolphin had the same notches, then I knew we had just seen that same dolphin out in the ocean. But there are more features I could check as well, and here are some examples. They are called nicks, scrapes, and rake marks. Let's take a look. This is what's called a nick. A nick is like the notches I just showed you, but they're just not as deep. And because they're so small, there is a chance that they could heal. These are called rake marks. They're called rake marks because they look like the mark that a garden rake would make in the soil. These are made when the teeth of one dolphin scrapes along the body of another dolphin. Again, this could be through playing or fighting. The last is a scrape. And the scrape is just like it sounds. The skin of the dolphin is scraped against something or another dolphin and takes the surface of the skin off. So, if after comparing all these features, if they all match up between both the new photo and the older photo in the database of a known dolphin, then I knew that I had seen the same dolphin out in the ocean. Then I would log the date and time I saw the animal, and this way we can track these animals over a period of years to see if the dolphin is still surviving and is in good health. Now let's see if you can do some dolphin identification. So let's take a look at these two pictures. So what's the first thing we would look at? Well, fin shape. Well, they do look the same, so that's a good start. Now let's see about any other features that they may have in common. Well, there looks like a scrape, and that looks like the same type of scrape, so that's good. Oh, there's a notch there, and a notch there, there's a notch there, and there's a notch there. And they all look about the same. So, what do you think? Yes, they are a match. And this dolphin's name is Black & Decker, and he was given this name because his fin, with these notches taken out, almost looked like the saw off a Black & Decker saw. So here are pictures of some of the animals I talked about throughout the video. This picture says a lot. Do you think these animals are thinking, if only I could live here in a beautiful, pristine ocean with nutritious food to eat? Well, With your help and my help, and if we all do our part, maybe someday our oceans can get healthy again and the animals can live long and healthy lives. So I really hope you enjoyed the presentation. Now, the pyramid that you've been working on throughout the video. I want you to take it and fold it along the black solid lines to give it its shape. That tab will go on the inside, and you can take a piece of tape or some glue to make it stick, and you have now completed your ocean food web pyramid. Changing what is happening in the world today with regards to ocean pollution is going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take all of us to do our part to start making conditions better. Ocean ecology is very important, not just for the marine animals, but for all life on this planet. I hope as you think about this presentation and look at the pyramid you created, you'll want to learn more about this issue. We have so much more that needs to be done, and a lot more to discover in our oceans as well. Do you know that we know more about outer space than we know about our oceans? In fact, as of 2015, 95% of our oceans have not been explored. Maybe you want to pursue a career in marine science and make a remarkable discovery someday. We could certainly use a lot more scientists in the aquatic field. But no matter what path you take in life, I hope this video helps you to make choices which can help heal our oceans and the animals that live there. Take care and stay well.